Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Live Your Jam podcast. I'm Ellen McGinnis, your host, and this episode is all about energy. Energy is a big topic, so I'm going to devote a few episodes to it. This episode today focuses on 2 areas. One, understanding how energy is important to building the bridge between your soul and yourself, your human self. And also, then, number 2 is understanding how energy can change our lives and the world for the better. Before we dive in, I want to introduce the format for this episode. It's slightly different. I've interviewed people and I've also spoken about some of my content. So the interview style I feel like is working well, and I'm getting a lot of really good positive feedback thanks to the 2 guests I've had who've been outstanding. In this podcast, I'm going to be interviewed myself, and I'm going to talk about that format in a minute here. But I just want to note that what I'm talking about today, it comes from a book that I've written that I've actually done nothing with yet. I'm waiting to see kind of what comes up, what threads and what direction that book needs to go in. But that content in the book serves as a guide for the topics that I'm discussing on my podcast. And all of them have been researched by moi and experienced or practiced by myself. So they're things that I think are really foundational to building this connection between your human self and your soul. So today, as I mentioned, is going to be a little bit different. I've been struggling on how to get these concepts out in a way that's succinct and, quite frankly, fun for me. So a friend of mine suggested that people interview me instead of me just talking solo and yapping at listeners on these foundational topics. So when you need help, what do? You go to your family. And so today I asked my brother, Matt, who will interview me on the topic of energy. Matt and I are super close. He's got an amazing sense of humor. We're Irish twins 1 year apart. You're going to have to guess who is the older one. He's very funny and creative, and I cannot guarantee you that he will stay focused. He's not an expert in this topic, as he'll let you know. He's joining us from the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. So I want to say a big welcome and thank you to Matt McGinnis, my brother, and the first person to interview me on the podcast. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, Ellen, thank you so much. And I'm fascinated by what you're doing. And I'm going to try to settle some old scores too.
All right. Well, game on. We're going to go for this. So I gave Matt a list of questions, some of which I know he thinks are nuts. No, but we're going to get there. He's going to kick it off, ask me the questions that hopefully will be conversational, and you're going to learn a little bit of how I look at energy and how it helps us to live from the inside out. So go for it, Matt.
Thanks, Al. It was very interesting the energy you displayed about my attention span. I just want to get that out there. As I looked over the material, it's very interesting. And in a way, it's been your life's work. Everyone that knows both of us knows that you have been
plucking away at this.
What's that?
Plucking away at this forever.
Plucking away at it. You're plucky little bird. I joke around with our friends that I have been getting free advice from Ellen my entire life. And I said a lot of it is very good. Some of it I might not like, but it's pretty accurate. And, as I think about this some more, you probably were, it was energy and how people are showing up, and you're
I'm just testing my material on you. I do think I've gotten better over the years not giving unsolicited advice. I've gotten much. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
mean, you have to know you're on the spot. I mean, for a while I doled it out, and I'm sure it annoyed the hell out of everybody. Now I think I'm better.
And now you're getting paid to do it. So
exactly. No. Paid for 20 years. You just got it free. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send you a bill.
That's right. Yeah.
For all the advice you didn't ask me for.
That's right. But you digress. No.
You do. All right, go with the first question.
Yes. The first question is, what do you mean when you say energy? How should your podcast listeners understand the topic we're going to talk about today?
Oh, funny you should ask. So when I say energy, it is a big topic. There's energy drinks, there's science and energy and Einstein and physics, and materialism is a big focus of that. So What I'm talking about is the invisible force that flows through everything, through our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, and even our interaction. It's the undercurrent of life that we can't always see, but we constantly feel. So just think of it in terms of, Matt, every word, thought, and action carries energy. You can walk into a room and know immediately if something feels tense or joyful. So it's the vibration beneath the surface of our experience. So I just want listeners to think about energy as not something out there or abstract, but as something deeply personal that we create and exchange and influence every day.
I remember going through some training back in my corporate life that talked about everything is fascinating data. You're taking it all in, you're assessing, your team members, your partners, your peers, your leader. You know, I tell my kids, your head coach, your coaches are looking at you all the time. They're taking it all in, and how you're showing up and the energy you're displaying. They inherently kind of get that, and that's what they how they view you as a player. And of course, over time, that accrues, and they kind of see the picture of you as a player and teammate and whatnot. So the next question is, why is it important to understand energy to build a stronger connection with your soul? So what you say is living from the
Inside
inside
out.
out.
Yeah, yeah. It's essential because building a stronger connection with your soul, the soul doesn't communicate in words, it communicates in vibration. So you'll start to notice subtle energies around you, and you're actually then beginning to learn the language of your inner wisdom. And I think we can see this when our own energy is when what drains us, what lifts us up, what aligns us. Sometimes we hear things and it automatically fills us up. And it's literally just something we heard, but yet we're filled up with this kind of resonance that actually feels, I think, pretty soothing to the soul. And you're noticing your energy and noticing this is an incredible source of inner guidance. It's where your intuition lives. I think intuition is the language of the soul. So when you start to notice this, you can start to live from the soul's frequency rather than reaction or fear, which is where the ego lives. Again, ego's not a bad guy. We need him to create our sense of identity, our belief system. But what we're doing here at Live Your Jam is building a more connection to our soul. And so it's really important for this work. So when you begin to understand energy, you're not just managing your mood or your stress, you're literally strengthening your ability to hear, trust, and follow your soul.
The hearing and pausing and listening, that really resonated with me because it's kind of a signal to noise thing. If you're constantly looking out and overthinking things, what might be happening just in a few hours or this weekend or what have you, you're really not digesting. And
Yeah, you're disconnecting. It's true.
right,
You're not exactly. No, that's very overthinking is candidly a low vibe. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but people can get caught up in overthinking and it's a very low vibration activity. I don't mean to shame people, but we'll talk about that in that section upcoming.
sure, right. How did you become skilled in understanding the energy in your life?
I think just because I'm amazing, no, I I became skilled because I worked at it. I
Mhm.
think I was an empath younger. I really related to animals, and where I'd go around and feed everybody's animal dogs within like a 2 mile radius and visit old people. But I was a massive extrovert too. So that I had to learn how to cancel out the external, the noise. And so I think I was highly sensitive to energy and people's emotions, and I learned over time to slow down and quiet myself, and that's when it really started to kind of become evident for me that I was getting information that I could really start to trust. So I'm super confident in my ability to trust energy in many situations. It's actually a great skill to have in my job when I'm working one-on-one with teams. I had a real blind spot in my personal life. I think when I really love somebody and or if you're in my inner circle, I kind of doubted some of the things I would feel because I want to think the best of people all the time. And again, we'll talk about how you judge the energy or not. But again, to your point, it's data, right? And so if we use the example of two people in a room And you walk into the room and you're like, oh, I can feel that it feels tense in here, but you're like, oh, there's two people I love. There's no way that they were just arguing. Like I would talk myself out of it.
That
And
just happened before we started. You were yelling at me, and
I was, yeah.
we cleared the
And
deck.
you sensed my energy was angry. No,
No,
that
no.
happened. So yeah, so that's a good example of like, I think, a hiccup can be when it's data just coming in, but yet sometimes when we take it up to our head, right, we can change it. So one more example I want to share with you is that, with my clients and the work, I listen a lot for what's not said. Like I listen for when somebody lights up or where their energy starts to dim, because they're just talking extemporaneously and sharing. And then I'm watching kind of where they light up, where they dim. And, just in my work with leaders in particular, what drains them most isn't really their workload. It's emotional dissonance, unspoken politics, all this low vibe dynamic stuff. And then I see them lift up around purpose and innovation and creative solutions and helping others grow. You could just see, people light up around that sort of stuff.
As you might have mentioned, we moved to Long Island from Phoenix, Arizona 11 months ago. It'll be a year next month. And it has been an interesting opportunity for my wife and I to just see how we are perceived and how we show up and what kind of energy we're giving off as a couple in a new town, a new vibes, you might have to help me understand vibe in terms of
Sure,
like,
I can. I can.
high vibe, low vibe, but then there's vibes like the kids talk about. But so that has been interesting for us to kind of see how people look at us, because it's entirely new and different folks. And I think after looking at some of the materials, I'm happy to say that I have been listening more than talking, which might not have been a strength of a Leo
Wow.
like you and I.
Yeah, big improvement there for you.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that
Yeah.
is awesome. The other thing I want to say about you and Erica moving, I can see you. We and I have not had this conversation. Like you guys just seem on fire and alive, and what that beginner's mind can do when you're exploring. Like you're exploring the East Coast now. Like yeah, you've been there, but you've not lived. And New York State and going to Manhattan all the time. And so you guys, I mean, you're out exploring nature, which I mean, it's just awesome. So I can see that the shift of it, like it's beginner's mind when you go to a new place. There's a new energy there of exploration and the true happiness that I can see for you too. This how this move has invigorated you. So, that's a good that's a good kind of view on energy. It's like you both seem really lit up and that this move has created a lot of space and joy for you. So hats off to you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we think variety is a spice of life, and it's funny when you take the train in the city. So we're leaving the suburbs, which is a space and a pattern that we're used to over the years, and then when you roll into Penn Station or Grand Central, you're kind of like, well, I'm in New York City. I better bring it, or have my head on a swivel, and there's about to be a bunch of energy coming at us, good, bad, and otherwise, but you're really heightened, and so thanks for saying that. Well, switching to the next question then, why do we often talk ourselves out of what we sense? I know I do that. I'm sure other folks do. Why do we do that?
Like the example I shared around like walking into a room, like my mindset was around people I loved. I can be super objective when I'm in my role, my like work role. I think because the rational mind wants proof, logic, and certainty, and there are many places, and we have too many of them where in the world today where we want proof, logic, and certainty. And I think the mind has its functions for analysis and logic and all these sort of things, but that's not the soul's game. The intuition speaks in subtle impressions, feelings, and energy. Einstein said everything has energy, and it does. And like I mentioned earlier, words, emotions. So the ego comes in because it doesn't like uncertainty. It wants to keep us safe, it craves control. And if what we sense doesn't match what we see or what we want to see or what seems socially acceptable, the ego will dismiss it. So when this happens, we're just essentially overriding soul language with brain language. And I always tell people like intuition whispers while the rational mind shouts. And I witnessed many people know something that's true for themselves and then talk themselves out of it. And I've done it myself too. I mean, we all have our blind spots. But when you start to notice that within yourself, notice yourself like, I want this or I know this. And then we go up to our mind. And I also say most people are living from the neck up today. Like we really need to kind of learn how to drop down and have more stillness so we can listen to the soul.
We can talk maybe about this more later, if you have me back. But I've been doing some manifesting.
Wow.
Sometimes I don't know. It's because our mom was a bit of a worrier back in the day, but sometimes I worry too much about the kids, maybe, and then I just say they're going to have a great day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
I don't need
Yeah.
to worry about them. They're going to be
No.
just fine.
Yeah.
And that is, because the rational mind is pretty dominant for me over the years. And so I think I am probably getting a little more intuitive. I don't have the tarot cards,
No.
that's
Well,
that's
there's always hope for you.
that's
You
right.
come to me
That's right.
for those.
Still playing spades and hearts. But moving on, Elle, what is one thing your listeners can do to improve their ability to understand and work with energy?
And the key is to pause and acknowledge what you sense and hold it without judgment. It's not about proving whether you're right or wrong. It's about honoring that your inner guidance has picked up something real. So if it's a muscle that we want to train and strengthen, start trusting these subtle symptoms without judgment. And I have a quick exercise that I give my clients is to like, if you sense something, like let's say you walked into the room, two people are there, they're sitting there, you're like, there's no way there's, conflict in here. They're happy, they have smiles on their faces. I must be wrong. Just pause for a minute and notice that you're sensing tension and take a slow breath and then before your mind goes to analyzing it and be like, where do I feel this in my body? And for me, tension always often shows up in my chest. And kind of embody it or kind of notice where it is in the body that prevents us from going up to your head. And then just name it without judgment. I sense tension or unease. And then start to hold it lightly. You don't have to act from it. There's nothing I need to do. I'm not going to say to the people in the room, like, wow, did you just have a dust up? I'm just going to, you just use it as your point around what you learned at work. Like, it's just a piece of data. And when we do that, we're strengthening that relationship because there are times when we're noticing energy and it's about our own life and we do need to maybe take action on it. But in the beginning, let's keep it out of the mind
Mm-hmm.
and stay down in the body. So I would say to people, a quick thing you can do is pause when you notice it, then anchor it in the body. Where do you feel it? Notice it without judgment, and then just kind of hold it lightly. Doesn't need to be a verdict.
Mm-hmm. Just the awareness, when you say hold it without judgment, hold it lightly, you don't have to take action. I
Yeah,
really like that because just being aware of whatever is half the battle. Y- You know, I think there's an expression, once begun, it's half done. So half the
right.
battle is just knowing that you're sensing these things and you have the time to sort it out. It doesn't need to be, you know, what the rational mind would prefer, which I would imagine would be some kind of immediate conclusion and action plan. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Some people are more prone to take action because they don't like the discomfort of what they've just
Right.
sensed. So they go to action. I mean, there's a lot. It's something people are just more action oriented. Yeah, no, yeah, it's true. Just naming and awareness is like to your point. It's more than half the battle because then you can sit with it and
Mm-hmm.
see what it's about. I'll do an episode on our thinking, right? Because our thoughts are critical to this whole process because they can get in the way. But yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Now we're getting to the high and low vibrations. And so if you could help me understand and the listeners a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah, I mean, so if everything has a vibration, an energetic vibration, which it does, thoughts, feelings, unspoken words. I'm not just talking about how we feel day to day, but also talking about the frequency that we're living from. I always give an example of the children's birthday party that some feels high vibe. You gave the example of coming into Manhattan, right? So if we begin to notice that everything has a vibration, humans have a vibration, right? And so you can raise your vibration, when you're drained, you're low vibe. So the human system has a vibration. I mean, a good example that I want to share with you is, there's something called the Schumann resonance, which is basically just the natural frequency of the earth or ground. And it vibrates at like 7.83 hertz, right? But there's all sorts of meditations that are in certain hertz, but those are different. That's a vibration that the earth naturally resonates at. And if you go outside and you take your shoes off and put your feet on the ground, you're going to start to pick up that vibration, right? So if yours is lower, it's going to start to elevate you. So I said, listen to vibrational music on YouTube or meditate to this. There's lots of ways to lift your vibration. And if you start to lift your vibration and stay grounded, that's what's the nice thing about the Schumann resonance is you're literally grounded to the earth. Because I'm not talking about, the Sufis here and the whirling dervishes, right? Which is like, wow, like that's kind of a mystic, wow. I mean, I'm not sure they're all that grounded when they're doing that, right? That's so, back to self, when you choose higher, there's higher vibration activities. So compassion, mindfulness, love, personal growth, you're literally starting to tune your inner instrument. So I know we've all been around negative people who low vibe, who complain, they blame, they drain. You feel tired after a conversation. People, we talked about this, you and I, just looping in worry, comparison, self-criticism, that's the mind and the ego. Those are low vibe things. And I think to begin to notice where you are spending your time. I don't suggest that people bypass. It's not like if you're complaining a lot, you're like, you need to stop automatically complaining and go outside and step in nature, go for a walk. I think you need to understand you're complaining, and we'll talk about this another time. But on the topic of energy, look at what you're doing. You're putting out there and look at what you're engaging in and start to just notice that objectively and see if you need to make any changes. So I want people to know that low vibe energy isn't bad. It is just information. It's a signal perhaps that something in your system needs rest, care, or redirection. So maybe you're complaining because you're tired and your needs aren't being met. So, take a nap. I know, that's one of your favorite things.
It's
And
special to your mind, yeah.
yes. And maybe you detach from the things that don't work for you anymore. I mean, then you're making a decision with it. But that's what I mean about high vibe and low vibe things is that being conscious and intentional about the energy you surround yourself with and the choices you make. I have never gone for a walk and not felt great afterwards. There's times I haven't wanted to go out the door for sure, but I come back and I'm like, no matter how short or how long, I'm like, I feel great. So nature is a natural uplifter. It calms our nervous system. It goes in sync with it. So I just use that as an example.
Since moving to the East Coast from the furnace of Phoenix, when I walk the dogs, I intentionally walk on the side of the street where there's no sidewalks, where there's squirrels and rabbits galore, because it's more interesting for the dogs, and they're dragging me around. But I'm getting like pine needles in the face and stuff like that. But it is a lot of fun out there because it is high vibes.
Yeah.
Be a little annoying at times, but I did buy Erica one of those electrical grounding mats because,
I didn't even heard of those.
yeah, we were a little concerned she might get electrocuted a couple times because like you can put them under your lap, like you're on your desk, and she had it in her bed one time, and I'm like,
so that's vibrating at some frequency
yeah,
that can ground, and that Schumann would be that it nice. Cool. I didn't know you could buy those.
yes.
Did you get it at Costco? Did you get it at Costco?
No, it was Amazon. I don't know where that is today, so I don't know that she's still. But okay. I was aware of
re-gift it.
That's right. It's that time of year. So yeah, the we when I was buying it, I noticed the science behind your feet in the earth, and that certainly makes sense. As they say, there's a meme that says, I don't know what the cure, how you need to be happy, but I've never been unhappy at a Mexican restaurant. And that's the segue to, like speaking for Erica or a lot of people, like I've never seen unhappy people on a beach. Like if your feet
Yeah.
are in the sand, if you're walking
Yes,
on the beach,
Erica is she that is her happy. But yeah, no,
yeah.
it's true. We and noticing and again, she's very well aware of that. Like when I'm there, I feel good. And that's her and that it's nature. Yeah, it's doing all the right things. So yeah, no, I think it's really important for us to recognize those things and not necessarily the low vibe things. We don't need to make them our energy. We just need to shift our attention
Hmm.
to the other things, And if
Hmm.
there's people around us that are kind of bringing us down, we might need to make some choices, some
Hmm.
decisions. I always,
Hmm.
send those people compassion and then get out of there.
Sure, sure. What does it mean to use our energy for our highest good? Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, it's a lot of what like we just talked about. Like if our energy is our life source, every time you focus your attention, speak or take action, you're using it for your highest good. So I am always like, what's the highest good I can do here, right? So let's say you're in the store and somebody whacks you and and for whatever reason, like instead of reacting to that, I mean, again, those are all choices. We get better as them. Some days are better than others, but it's just what we talk about: taking a step back from negativity, setting healthy boundaries, speaking kindly to yourself, and creating something that uplifts others. I think Live Your Jam is really kind of like it's a high vibe choice, right? If I'm going to do the things that matter and uplift me in my life, I naturally those high vibe things I wanna take out to the world with other people, and so I think I encourage people to find out what the high vibe things are because there's so many answers in that. There's so many answers in terms of helping navigate us to our highest good. I think the soul is the highest good, the soul holds what's the best possible version for us and is trying to help us explore that.
That's helpful. The setting healthy boundaries. It's funny in the last few months. That's actually kind of one of the things that when you started Live Your Jam and certainly these podcasts, and one of your previous episodes, you talk about folks kind of resetting in their 50s and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
we all kind of
It's
played the
never too
role we were
late.
supposed to in the 20s,
Yep.
30s, and 40s. But it's, especially as you point out, it's a women have a few extra expectations put upon them by society, and that is not great all the time. But so when it comes to boundaries, I've heard Erica say a few times in the past few months, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one.
And
Go
so,
to
final question,
final question.
final Jeopardy. Okay. I have heard you talk about collective consciousness.
Yeah,
What is that?
yeah.
And how is it related to energy?
Yeah, the other it's a term I think we all hear quite a bit. It's a shared energy field created by a bunch of individual energies. So I think, it's a meta term, in terms of the collective consciousness can go on for has gone on for years. Like there's thoughts I have in my head that I'm like, I don't know that I've ever been told that. So if everything carries energy, then there's thoughts out there in the ether that have emotion in it or have a vibration and an energy that can make it into if you ever looked at your monkey chatter, it's like half the stuff isn't even yours anyway, like when you're really examining your thoughts. So collective consciousness is a shared field of energy created with, by individual and when individual energies, thoughts, feelings, actions phase together. So the energy you bring feeds the field and the field shapes what people do. So I don't know if you've ever same concept gone some countries have a collective conscious have an energy, states do, families do. And so, if two people in a room can have an energy field, so can all these other places. And that's why it's so important we all do the inner work. And I, you know, I just really truly believe one act of violence is an act of violence for all, and one act of love is an act of love for all. So if everything has an energetic vibration and I put love out into the world, that feeds the field. Now, and I know that sounds like totally woo woo. But I don't want to go out and whack other people in the world. I want to try to keep them with kindness and respect. And when I can't do that, I need to like say a prayer or a little quick blessing and go away. I'm still human, but we all can create a higher energy field, and that matters. So if you think of yourself as a tuning fork, when you're vibrating at a higher frequency, you resonate with your soul's truth because the soul holds our highest good and wants what's best for us. So that resonance is what guides you towards your decisions and relationships. And it also helps you rise above the noise. And there is a lot of noise out there today, like the political discord, there's a lot of fear driven narrative. So it's a challenge to stay connected to your deeper knowing. So the collective consciousness, what I do in my daily life feeds the collective consciousness. And I really think that's the path for healing for us all. It's not wars. It's not, I mean, I know there are big problems to solve and I know there's a lot, but if we all treated each other more humanely and then with compassion, we would feed a higher vibe collective consciousness. And I do wonder if that's not the role humans have in this lifetime, is to just keep trying to get higher that way, trying to evolve from a sense from the heart.
Yeah, there has to be more to it than sometimes what you get admired in the day to day, because these are challenging times, certainly. So, I will think of myself as a tuning fork,
Please
one
do.
of the larger forks. I'm big boned, but that concept will stick with me. You said monkey chatter
Yeah.
earlier, which could you just explain that a little bit? And it reminds me of what Jane Goodall said. Speaking of,
A nice segue.
thank you. She was one of the best to ever do it. And she said, what you do makes a difference. And you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, we're co-creating the world's tone and the choices that we make every day, whether where we focus our attention, how we treat others, what we amplify, ripple beyond us. And when more people act from compassion and presence, the collective field rises. So that's really it. I mean, that's the end game, the larger game of live your jam. And I use game sort of playfully, but that this was work, but it's good work. And once we keep working on ourselves, we actually are working with compassion and presence for our own self. The collective, it impacts everything. I believe we're all connected. So how could it not? So I just want to thank you. I that We're out of questions, and that concludes our session. And I know you've learned a lot from me.
I have. And, and
And
and you could do a couple more episodes on all the stuff that I've imparted upon you, and you have been flummoxed and flabbergasted by my awesomeness
yeah,
more
probably
than
not. But I want to thank you so
I'm going to start my
much.
own podcast.
Go.
So
I welcome that. The world can use your creativity. So I thank you so much. You've been delightful, and I appreciate you helping me out. And I love you.
I love you too. Thank you, Al. This has been awesome.
All
Thanks.
right, bye, everybody.
Keep doing the good
All
work.
right, thank you. My
Bye.
brother said that. I'm doing good work. All right, bye bye.
Goodbye.